Kathy and I came to Minnesota from Arizona in 1978. I had accepted a fellowship at the Mayo Clinic with some trepidation. I had lived my whole life in warm climes. As a desert rat, I wasn't exactly sure that I could survive a Minnesota winter. Kathy, as a Montana girl, didn't share my concerns. So we bought warm clothing and came to Rochester. It turned out that 1978 was one of the coldest winters on record, and I learned to love it. In fact, every winter since has seemed mild by comparison. I learned the pleasure and the pain of shoveling snow, the beauty of the pure white snow after a new snowfall, the fun of cross-country skiing, the crunch of snow under my feet, and how not to put my hands in my pockets when walking on ice. I ripped out 2 sets of coat pockets that way before I learned better. I also skinned my nose, but fortunately, I did not break any bones. That beauty contrasts with the harshness of the winter. I shiver with wonder at the perseverance of our first pioneers as I snuggle under my layers of blankets and comforters at night, or sit by our fireplace. No wonder we celebrate this season with food and family. I welcome you all with the joy of the season. We light our chalice today with the words of the Reverend Dr. Cynthia Landrum. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun and stars and all the lights of the heavens, we light this chalice. The first reading is Snow Day by Billy Collins. Today we woke up to a revolution of snow, its white flag waving over everything. The landscape vanished, not a single mouse to punctuate the blankness. And beyond these windows, the government buildings smothered, schools and libraries buried, the post office lost under the noiseless drift, and the paths of trains softly blocked, the world fallen under this falling. In a while, I will put on some boots and step out like someone walking into water, and the dog will porpoise through the drifts, and I will shake a laden branch, sending a cold shower down on both of us. But for now, I'm a willing prisoner in this house, a sympathizer with the anarchic cause of snow. I will make a pot of tea and listen to the plastic radio on the counter, as glad as anyone to hear the news. That the Kidney Corner School is closed, the Ding Dong School is closed, the All Aboard Children's School closed, the Hi-Ho Nursery School closed, and, with some delight to hear, the Toadstool School, the Little School, Little Sparrow's Nursery School, Little Stars Preschool, Peas and Carrots Day School, and the Tom Thumb Child Center all closed. And clap your hands, the Peanuts Play School. So this is where the children hide all day. These are the nests where they letter and draw, where they put on their bright miniature jackets, all darting and climbing and sliding, all but the few girls whispering by the fence. And now I am listening hard in the grandiose silence of the snow, trying to hear what those 3 girls are plotting, what riot is afoot, which small queen is about to be brought down. Now, I'd like to make a comment here that having grown up in southern Arizona, gone to college in California, I never got a snow day. And we were actually quite jealous. We'd hear on the radio that there's a snow day in the Midwest, and then, of course, we plodded to school. The second reading is White Eyes by Mary Oliver. In winter, all the singing is in the tops of the trees, where the windbird, with its white eyes, shoves and pushes among the branches. Like any of us, he wants to go to sleep, but he's restless. He has an idea, and slowly it unfolds. From under his beating wings, as long as he stays awake, but his big, round music, after all, is too breathy to last. So it's over. In the pine crown he must make his nest. He's done all he can. I don't know the name of this bird. I only imagine his glittering beak, tucked in a white wing, while the clouds, which he has summoned from the north, which he has taught to be mild and silent, thicken and begin to fall into the world below like stars, or the feathers of some unimaginable bird that loves us, that is sleepy now and silent, that has turned itself to snow.
It all started with the weather report the night before. The hopeful possibility of a child's mind of wintry mix, followed by the almost certain mountains of snow, inches and inches per hour forecasted, they say, all through the night. The hopeful expectation when in the morning, as Billy Collins writes, we'll listen to the plastic radio on the counter, as glad as anyone to hear the news of the litany of schools closed. Often these dreams led nowhere other than to dashed dreams, these false forecasts of these weather prophets. But every beautiful, miraculous now and then, a snow day. And the day would always begin for me with possibility. First, looking out the window, realizing my dreams that these words that were just mere fiction last night from the KEYC News Weather Desk had now come true. Staring at a world now transformed, a city shut down, streets covered, things forced to a halt by the sheer immensity, fierceness of little flakes falling from the sky. I'd often grab some of my favorite toys, whatever they were that particular week. Often it was Matchbox cars, not Hot Wheels. Matchbox. I've had one debate this morning about this. I'm gladly take on more after the service. And I'd spread out a little town around my living room while waiting for my parents, who were now negotiating the duties and schedules of a very different looking day. For some reason, they weren't quite as joyful as I was on those mornings. And then shortly after, we'd begin the process of moving outside. But before you do, you have to dress in layers and layers. Some of you know the scene from A Christmas Story, the movie, where Randy, Ralphie's little brother, is being almost shrink-wrapped and stuffed into the snowsuit, then wrapped up with hats and about 40 feet of scarf round and round his head. And at one point, he's there like this with his hands to the side, and he's trying to say something his mom can't understand, so she takes it back off his head, and he just says, "I can't put my arms down." And then she tries a few times to put him down like this, and they pop right back up because he's stuck in this snowsuit. And so she just gives up and sends him out the door anyway. You know that scene, whether you've seen that movie scene or not, of preparing for the cold and the snow, adding layer after layer to survive these winter months. My perspective on all of it has shifted somewhat over the years, knowing the difficulty that can provide for families or challenges of safety and all that, but still deep down, if I'm honest, I loved those days as a child, and I still do as an adult. A love for that first snow in particular, the real first snow, where it blankets everything, a cloak of winter falling on our home, on our town, on our lives. On those mornings, I remember waking to what one film calls, after the first snow, a room filled with silence and light. There's something about those memories, that feeling, something about being filled with silence and light that seems so counterintuitive. How can you be filled with something you can't grasp and you can't even purchase? There's no deal or sale on these things. How can it fill you if you can't hold it? But we know that is the best of what this season offers in all these traditions, and it's often hard to come by, silence and stillness and light. We are bombarded with what will, they say, with a seasonal guarantee, fill our souls and hearts with joy and purpose and beauty. And we know, and yet have to keep naming over and over again, that the message we are giving is that we can fill our loneliness, we can fill our isolation, our sadness, our despair, our longing for connection and joy with stuff and things and savings. In particular, with Black Friday and Cyber Monday, like the liturgical high holy days of capitalism, we are taught to believe in the season that we can buy our way to joy. But sometimes what we're really longing for are rooms and hearts and lives filled with silence and light. Perhaps the best gift is when the earth itself gives no other option than to stop you, to halt you. You wake up to a revolution of snow and its white flag, writes Billy Collins, waving over everything. The landscape vanished. Government buildings smothered. Schools and libraries buried. The post office lost under the noiseless drift. That's for you, Angie Joyce. The paths of trains softly blocked. The world falling under this falling. But he writes, I am a willing prisoner in this house, in the grandiose silence of snow. This is a layered season, complex and layered in beauty and starlight and the whispers of clouds falling and covering the ground, layered in things both beautiful and demanding, maybe obligations or lists and tasks, mega deal-sized expectations of things to buy or do or be, the festivity of the lights and the sounds and the shopping. Sometimes there are ancient wisdoms worth recalling to counter them a little bit. In these spiraling days where you can feel lost in the flurry of it all, sometimes the world invites us to slow down and reminds me of this ancient writing from the Hebrew Bible, 1 Kings. Maybe you remember it. The author says, now there was a great wind. It was so strong that it was splitting mountains and breaking rocks in pieces before God, but God was not in the wind. And after the wind there was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but God was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of sheer silence. The sound of sheer silence. And rooms and spaces filled with it. Like after the first snow of the season, or after the realization or the remembering that happiness comes from something beyond, beneath, much deeper than anything you can buy. Sometimes a simple question from someone we love can offer us a gift, an invitation to pause, to empty our lives and minds and hearts of the clutter and the festive frenzy of the season, to create some space for breath. One of those questions came to me not long ago as I was amidst the decoration section in a large store looking for the correct and perfect decorations for our outdoor tree. Now, before I get to that question, a little context about me, which some of you know. I am steeped in a lineage of festive decoration heritage. So I attended the Bernice Royer School of Festivity, that holidays are supposed to take over your home, and every corner, every threshold, beam, hook, door, window is an opportunity, or perhaps, she might say, a joyful obligation to adorn it with cheer and goodwill. In my home, we have many of her things adorning our home now. And then I did my continued study with her protege, my father, who did his focus study on exterior illumination for the holidays. Again, every gutter, every tree, every place reachable by an extension cord was a joyful invitation to light up the season. Now, we weren't too extreme in either case, my grandma's house, my parents' house, nor is our home now, in my opinion. You can judge for yourself if you know where I live. But in my mind, there was always this echelon of festivity in our minds of Clark Griswold, which is a whole nother level, and we never reached it, which is probably okay. So that's a little context as to why I was here, shopping for lights for our front yard tree, there amidst the decorations in this large store, when a voice asked, as she was looking at the little plastic figurines, and you had Mary and Joseph and Santa Claus and Frosty the Snowman all there together, she said, "Why did Jesus start Christmas?" Oh, no. I wanted to give some simple and ridiculous answer like, God wanted us to have twinkle lights. I'm sure of it. But instead, it was kind of like having the wind knocked out of me a little bit. I bumbled about, feeling like I was embodying hypocrisy, searching the shelves frantically for illuminated consumerism, while at the same time saying, oh, Jesus didn't really start Christmas exactly. It's a time when people celebrate his birth, and remember that the most ordinary and humble things are beautiful and sacred, that God or love show up when we open our doors to our neighbors. But hold this extension cord because my hands are full of other things. It's all so complicated. It's so layered, isn't it? Because I do believe that it is good to appreciate things made and gifted by others, and it's good to gift things to others and celebrate creativity and artistry and to practice generosity. And I also believe it's good to remember our heritage or things from loved ones that we hold dear, practices that are tangible or experiential. I believe it's so good to enjoy the festivity and fun and joy of a season if you're able to. And when this question was offered, it made me remember how complicated it all is. How any holiday is complicated. How our nostalgia and our cultural stories and our personal beliefs and our recipes and our advertising and our marketing is mixed and mingled with disparity and with beauty, with people using creativity and generosity right in the middle of systems of greed and individualism. It's all right there, Mary and Joseph, Santa Claus, and Frosty. And so perhaps it's fitting in this world for this question about the birth of a moral teacher who lifted up the lowly and was born in poverty, happened right amidst that glowing family and the Snoopy mailbox that opens and shuts on its own like magic, because the season is so layered. And with each layer, there's an invitation, I think, to go deeper, to ask another question, to wonder as you wander about those aisles and about your life, about what is living in each layer of the season for you. Because this season comes on like a revolution of snow, blanketing the world, blanketing all of us, and under it all are layers like snow on snow on snow, maybe of memory or loss, strained relationships or glad memories, layers of culture and joy and story and struggle and song. And often there are things that we barely realize are living just beneath the surface when something invites us to pay attention to it. The way to hold it, survive it, flourish in this all isn't so clear. But maybe it's just how we let each layer be what it is, and try not to put on unnecessary layers that we don't have to, that hold us down or constrict us, but only put on the layers that we know will hold us well and keep us warm and safe, that will hold us in love and joy and possibility and gratitude and generosity and simplicity. Maybe it's like these words from Stanley Kunitz. I've walked through many lives. I am not who I was, though some principle of being abides. When I look behind, as I am compelled to look before I gather strength to proceed ahead on my journey, I see the milestones dwindling toward the horizon and the slow fires trailing from the campsites. Yet I turn, with my will intact to go wherever I need to go, every stone on that road precious to me. Because in my darkest night, when the moon was covered, a nimbus-clouded voice directed me, live in the layers, not in the litter. And though I lack the art to decipher it, I am not done with my changes. Maybe each layer is a possibility. Each layer of the season could be good or bad. It's how we enter it. It's what history is behind it. The question is whether it allows us the ability to find love and beauty, to be struck with awe and wonder and joy. Do these layers bring us that, or do they stifle or constrain us till we can't even put our arms down and your soul doesn't have the room it needs to breathe. Maybe it's how we enter and notice the humanity beneath all those trinkets and toys, the humanity beneath whatever it is, the people who made them, the people who gifted them, how we notice and name the humanity beneath the surface of those recipes and stories to what they really mean in our lives, the traditions both held and broken and changed, beneath the feelings that intertwine to make it hard to know how to feel in the midst of it all. Perhaps there is a possibility there in the many layers to be open to the awe and the wonder and the gift of spaces and places that are filled with stillness and silence, filled with the things that any good part of this season can help bring to being, which at its core is love. In winter, writes Mary Oliver, all the singing is in the tops of the trees, while the clouds which the bird has summoned from the north, which he has taught to be mild and silent, thicken and begin to fall into the world like stars. It all starts with a hopeful expectation, sometimes the night before, that the next day or the next moment there may be something that is going to halt you and slow you down, stop you in your tracks, whether you had planned for it or not, so that from time to time our days and our hearts and our seasons amidst all these layers might be filled with the gifts of silence and light. I invite you, if you're comfortable, to join a hand next to you or place your hand over your heart and breathe deep the breath of life. Take a deep breath. And again. And again. Amen.